So today I'm going to be doing a tour of my setup which I use for music production, but not only that, I'll also be going over all of the video gear which I use to make my YouTube videos as well. Now quickly before I get started, I want to say that all of the stuff that I have is completely over the top for making music and YouTube videos. If you're wanting to get into music production or you want to start making YouTube videos, I do not recommend buying any of this stuff that I use. This is just stuff that I think works well with my workflow. It doesn't necessarily mean it'll make me a better music producer or a better YouTuber just because I have a certain piece of equipment. In fact, I'm actually going to film this entire setup tour with this janky setup right here, just to prove that point. And I also just want this to be something casual too, where I just go through all of my setup and give some of my thoughts on the gear that I use. Now, because this is going to be a super casual laid back video, we're going to need some super casual music, so let's just go ahead and take care of that. So now let's just switch over to the casual cam and we can start with the room tour. Actually, first I might make all of these lights white because this looks horrible on this camera. Yeah, that is looking a whole lot better. Okay, so anyway, we may as well start off with my main desk setup here. This is where I get all my work done. This is where I spend most of my time. So this right here is my 2019 iMac. It is actually pretty decently spec'd for an iMac. I'll leave all of the specs on the screen somewhere, and no, I do not want to build a PC. So I was actually planning to get an iMac Pro for my setup, but then this thing here got announced a few weeks before, which had pretty similar performance, but it cost like $3,000 less, so it was actually a pretty good deal. And this model here is actually RAM upgradable, so I just brought the 8 gig version, put in 32 gig of my own. I have 40 gig now. It is still not enough. I actually come pretty close to hitting that limit when I'm editing video or anything like that. So on this computer, I obviously have Ableton Live, and I may as well just go through and show some of the plugins which I use. So because the version of Ableton Live which I have has a whole lot included, I actually don't have too many plugins, especially when it comes to sound generation ones. So as you can see, the only sound design plugin which I actually have is just Serum right here, and I don't actually use it too often. Most of the time I feel like I can just get away with using an analog or an operator synth. I am actually pretty interested in checking out Phase Plant. I've heard a whole lot of good things about it. It seems like more of my thing than Serum does. So I still have a few audio effect plugins. So we have these Slate Digital ones that I actually use a whole lot, and it just crashed. Nice. So I mainly just use these Slate plugins when I do a little bit of mixing for my videos. I don't have any problems with the sound of these plugins. They sound pretty good to me, but the thing that I like the most is just how nice they look. I think it's pretty uncommon for mixing and mastering plugins to look this nice. I'm looking at you, Waves Audio. But yeah, it comes with a whole lot of stuff. You can really customize it as much as you want. And I like the whole fact that it is on a subscription basis, so I can get rid of it whenever I want, bring it back whenever I want. A lot of the time I'll still just stick to the Ableton plugins because those are just a whole lot easier to use. Anyway, another Slate Digital plugin which I use a lot is this Overloud THU Slate. This one here I just use for all my guitar tones. I like being able to just go through and change things out as I need them. What else do we have? So I actually use the iZotope ones quite a lot. I usually just do a really quick master with Ozone here for all of my songs in my videos. I don't want to waste too much time, and I feel like Ozone is the best way to go about this. I can just quickly get it mastered, and I actually use this Master Assistant more than you'd expect. And then I've also got Neutron 3 here, which I haven't spent too much time with, but I do like the transient shaper as well as the sculptor, I think it is I've used. Is it? I have no idea. What does this do? Okay, maybe it wasn't sculpted. That doesn't look very familiar. And then the last iZotope one which I have is this vocal synth too, which I do not use for vocals. So far I've only used it for guitar and a few synthesizers. I have yet to try it out with any vocals, but the demos and stuff that they have look pretty interesting. I'll have to give it a try one day. And I have also got some universal audio plugins. I just have the basic ones that came with my sound card here. So these are just the basic plugins. I really don't use them that much at all. I know they sound good and they have a really good reputation, but most of the time I'd much rather just bring in one of these compressors here. The less windows that I have popping up and taking over my screen, the better. And there's also the fact that these universal audio plugins are insanely expensive. I can really not justify spending $300 on a preamp or a compressor or anything like that. Maybe if I actually made real music, I would. Now you might be thinking, why would you buy a universal audio interface when you don't want to use universal audio plugins? This audio interface, which is the universal audio Arrow, is only powered by Thunderbolt 3, which means one less power cable, which if you look underneath my desk, you'll see that I do not have any more room for any more power cables. And I also like the fact just how portable it is. You can just use the Thunderbolt cable to plug it into a MacBook Pro or something like that. But yeah, it gets the job done. It's actually the first audio interface which I've owned. I haven't really needed one before, which is weird because I'd been making music for 10 years before even getting an audio interface. That is usually the first thing which people recommend getting. Anyway, hooked up to this audio interface, I have these Yamaha HS5 studio monitors, and to be honest, I don't actually use these that often. I pretty much just use them to reference my music once I've finished it or once I'm in the mixing phase, which is pretty much the main reason as to why I didn't end up getting the HS8s, which are a whole lot better, but those things are massive. I live in an apartment, I don't really want to get kicked out, and these things seem to do the job for when I need them. I still actually prefer making music with headphones, but we'll get to the headphones in a second. So I've got these speakers sitting on these isoacoustic stands. They really get them to a perfect height for listening to music, and they also are meant to offer, what is it, vibration reduction or something like that? I'm not too sure, I haven't really noticed it. They seem to get the job done, but I also think that they're very wobbly once you've got them on this higher setting. There are definitely way cheaper solutions than these things here, but I just wanted something where I could see the lights behind. That's pretty much it. Okay, also coming out of this audio interface, I have, oh my god, headphones. So these are the Sennheiser HD 440 Bluetooth wireless headphones. These are not actually studio headphones or anything like that. I just wanted something that wasn't ugly for when I make my videos. I think they look pretty good and my ears have adjusted pretty well to them, so I have no reason to upgrade. And also, if you're wondering why this box here says new on it, it is because I had to buy a second pair. I broke this cable on the first pair that I brought, and it would have taken an extra 2 months to get a replacement sent in, so I thought it would just be better to buy a whole nother pair of headphones. So yeah, I guess I am going to have to be using these headphones for a very long time. That's pretty good though, because there's nothing worse than having to adjust to new headphones. Okay, so now I think it's time to move on to one of my favorite purchases for this setup, and that is just my Ableton Push 2 here. I absolutely love this thing here. It is so amazing. It is everything that I wanted in a controller. I really liked this launch pad that I used to use, but I just really missed velocity sensitivity, and I also wanted something with a pitch bend. I mean, I could have always had that and my MIDI keyboard sitting on the desk at the same time, but that ends up taking up way too much room. And this push can do pretty much the exact same thing as both the launchpad and the MIDI keyboard, but it is all in a pretty small form factor, and I just like how integrated it is with Ableton, which is no surprise. And I think this is going to be my main controller for a really long time. I think the only thing that would make me upgrade to an Ableton Push 3 would be if they integrated an audio interface into it and also a MIDI out. I think that would be the only two features that I'd want on top of this. But yeah, that is the Push. I might actually do a video on this thing in the future. There is a whole lot of questions that people ask about this. Oh, and also connected to this thing, I've got these two cables here which lead down to these two Nectar foot pedals right here. This one here is a recording foot pedal, and this one is a sustain pedal. This recording one really comes in handy when I'm trying to record in guitar parts and I have to do it 80 times. And yeah, I think that is everything music related for this desk setup. Now let's go ahead and move on to the camera gear. Yeah. Okay, so this is my main camera that I use. It is the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. It is the best camera ever with the worst name ever. So I think this camera here is the most overkill thing out of my entire setup. You don't really see a whole lot of YouTubers using this as their main camera, but I actually think that it is the perfect camera for me. It does drop quite a few popular features that other cameras have, but that also makes it a whole lot cheaper than the competition. I definitely think this camera is the best for anything in its price range. So yeah, anyway, on this camera I have the Panasonic Lumix G 15mm f1.7 lens. It is a micro four thirds lens, so you have a little bit of a crop, but it seems to do me pretty well. But I'd much rather have a smaller lens on this thing than getting a speed booster or something and putting a giant lens that comes all the way out to here. And also attached to this camera I have my storage here, which is just a Samsung T5 SSD. Now this is just connected to the camera by USB-C, which is one of my favorite features of this camera, and you might be thinking that 500 gigabytes is a huge amount for a camera, which is kind of true, but this camera here really knows how to chew through storage. So when I film my videos, I have it set to 5:1 compression, recording in the Blackmagic RAW format, and this usually gets me around 90 minutes of recording on this 500 gig SSD, which means that usually my videos end up being near 1 terabyte per video, which is really ridiculous. I have two of these 4 terabyte external hard drives mounted under my desk, and those things got filled up pretty much instantly from all of my video footage. But at the end of the day, I do think it is completely worth it. The video that this camera can record is completely insane. This camera also has a million other cables coming out of it. So these things here are constantly plugged into the camera. We have an HDMI cable, a mini XLR port, we have a power adapter, and then I've also got a 3.5mm auxiliary cord in there if you can see it. And this is one of my favorite things about this setup. So this aux cord is connected directly into my headphone output of my sound card, which means whatever sounds I'm hearing through my headphones coming out of Ableton are being recorded directly into the camera, so that way I don't have to worry about screen recording or anything like that to get my audio out of Ableton, which really just helps streamline the entire process. It definitely helps cut down on editing time and stuff like that. But wait a minute, I better actually mention that this whole camera here is sitting on this blue Compass boom microphone stand, so that allows my camera to move around wherever I want it to go, and it holds still considerably well. It makes it really simple to get some pretty crazy camera angles, which I couldn't usually get with a tripod, and I can do them really fast. So we can just go like that, pull it up, turn it around. Hell yeah. So then I've also got another one of these arms which is connected to my microphone as well as my camera monitor here. So this here is my main monitor, which is an Atomos Shinobi. It is a really good monitor. It really does a good job of showing exactly what the footage looks like. I've also got this other one over here, which is just a cheap one off eBay. Well, it's still pretty expensive, but it's half the price of this one. And I just use this one here for if I ever have to set the camera up on the other side of the room or anything like that. The quality of this one definitely isn't anywhere near the Shinobi, but it gets the job done. I can still see myself. And the microphone that I have here is the Rode NTG4. It is not a battery powered one. It is actually powered by phantom power, which is actually supplied by the camera through mini XLR, which is really cool. That is just one less battery which I have to worry about. That was one of my main concerns when I was putting together this filming setup. I just really wanted everything to be AC powered. I don't want to have to mess around with batteries or anything like that anymore, because my old camera, which I used to use, which is this Nikon D5300. This thing here was only battery powered, which means I could only film for around an hour and a half before I'd have to stop. And that was with two of these batteries here. So all my older videos, I just really had to rush. And while I'm here, I may as well go over my other microphone, which I used to use. So this is the Rode VideoMic Pro. I think there's a plus on the end. Yeah, that's it. The Rode VideoMic Pro Plus. This thing here is actually pretty good, but I only wanted to switch over to XLR for this camera here so that I could get the audio in, like I already said. And yeah, so I think there's everything that I've got on this desk setup. Oh wait, I've also got this light here. So this is my main normal light. It is not a colorful one like all of my other ones. So this is one of the Elgato key lights. I just really like how thin the whole thing is, and I like that it's desk mounted. I don't really make use of most of the features that it has because I don't have a stream deck. I pretty much just use it as a regular light. And speaking of lights, I may as well go over this light bar here. So this is the LifeX Beam. I really like this thing. It is quite expensive for what just looks like a light strip, but it can do a whole lot more. You can paint it to be different colors. You can rearrange it because everything is magnetic. I can't change the colors right now because I'm actually filming on my phone. But yeah, I actually really like it. I want to get some more to go around the rest of the room, but that stuff isn't really important right now. I can get that any other time. And then just all the other lights that I have around the room are also LifeX bulbs. So I can just make them any color, any brightness that I want. I really like the aesthetic that it gives to my videos. And we also have Rubik's Cube. I don't actually remember the brand of this one, but it is actually quite a professional one, even though I'm not a speed cuber at all. And then coming over here, we have piano. So this here is a Casio AP260. So I really like this piano. I actually spend a whole lot of time playing it, but I don't play it too much in my videos. I feel like I need to properly take some lessons or something before I start using it in videos because I am not a pianist at all. I have no idea what I'm doing. But I do actually like the fact that it does have MIDI out, so I can play Ableton instruments with this. And actually when I do use it with Ableton, I use this little launchpad mini here. So I just use it to trigger scenes and trigger recording and stuff like that when I'm playing in MIDI from the piano onto Ableton. And then now we have my beautiful guitar. So this is a very dusty Ibanez RG series. Does it have a full model name on here? I know it's ridiculously long. I think it is the RG370 something 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 SWK. I'll just quickly look it up. Okay, so it's actually pretty close. It is the Ibanez RG370 AHMZ SWK, really rolls off the tongue. I really still can't believe how good this guitar looks. I think the main reason why I went for this model was actually just because of how good it looked. I was actually originally planning to get something that was dirt cheap that would just get the job done. Because I'm a music producer, I don't actually care that much about how the actual guitar sounds because I'm probably gonna edit the hell out of it anyway. But yeah, I ended up going with this thing and it is pretty amazing so far. I'm glad that a lot of you are actually liking my guitar stuff that I'm putting in the videos. It helps me not feel so bad for buying a guitar just for its looks. But yeah, anyway, I think that is it for my entire setup. Well, all the interesting stuff at least. Obviously, I have some extra junk lying around, like extra microphones, lights, whatever this thing here is. Headphone amplifier? Okay. And a Nintendo Wii. Cool. But yeah, anyway, that is my setup. I hope you enjoyed this quick little look at everything. And just to wrap up this video, I just want to say that out of all of the gear that I own, the only thing that I actually recommend you go out and buy if you're wanting to get into music production is the Alesis V25 keyboard. This is still one of my favorite pieces of gear just because of how cheap it is. And yeah, it does have a couple of quirks, but I think it's still really solid. But yeah, anyway, that is going to wrap it up for this video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.